So it looks like obviously a gigantic bait and switch to dupe Trump supporters. And then Donald Trump has to shut the whole thing down. The Trump administration has nothing to gain financially out of releasing the Epstein files.
So recently, Max Blumenthal went on Judge Napolitano's podcast and talked a little bit regarding the truth surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's associations and why the Trump administration is so adamant about covering it up and going against things that they used to said would lead them to the release of the Epstein files, the client lists, and other things that they're now just pretending essentially don't exist. I haven't seen his take on this yet, and I'm extremely interested in it, so let's watch. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Was Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad asset?
Well, Alex Acosta, the Florida prosecutor, declared him to be, said that he belonged to intelligence. I think he was told to basically retract that comment. A Saudi passport or Saudi ID card was found in Jeffrey Epstein's belongings, among his belongings after he died or supposedly committed suicide. His partner, his wing woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of trafficking minors to him exclusively, not to anyone else, was the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who received practically a state funeral in Israel. What had Mossad chiefs at his funeral. And his last phone call was to Samuel Pisar, who was the father and the stepfather of Tony Blinken, who is his fixer, who is also the head of the French Jewish lobby. Robert Maxwell was definitely a Mossad agent. So there are all these connections to Jeffrey Epstein through the Mossad. But really, ultimately, maybe Jeffrey Epstein's ultimate legacy was helping elect Trump by convincing a bunch of low IQ MAGA dupes that Trump was going to take on the deep state and release all these Epstein files. And at the end of the day, as Trump himself said, Trump didn't want to ruin a bunch of lives by releasing what he considered phony material, which could have come back and harmed him. No one was closer in U.S. politics to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump. Why did anyone think that Donald Trump was going to be the one to expose the Epstein network?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree with Max. I'll take exception to one element, but he's totally right regarding Epstein's associations with Robert Maxwell. If people don't know, Robert Maxwell is essentially the most famous spy in Israel history. He was a Mossad agent. He was even reported to be that in various publications that talked about this. As Max said, he had a state-run funeral, essentially, with the most prominent people in Israeli intelligence at his funeral. One thing Max misses here, and, he said a lot of other things that are relevant and tangible, is that, Epstein maintained a close relationship with Ehud Barak, too, who not only lived at his property at times, but also visited him 30 plus times. We have documented evidence of that being the case. He was the former prime minister of Israel and the former chief of Mossad. So yeah, Max Blumenthal is totally right about these associations being at least pointing in that direction. It's pointing to a plausible scenario in which he was an actual Mossad agent. Now, are they going to give us the definitive proof? Clearly, the Trump administration saying they're not going to give us that proof, just like the Biden administration. Instead, they pulled that stupid PR stunt back in February, I believe, where they handed out those binders that said the Epstein files phase 1, implying that there was going to be a phase 2, by the way, but shelving that now, right? Because you can't have that. And those documents being completely farcical, things that had already been known or released. Now, where I'll take exception to Max is where he said that no one was closer in American politics to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump. All indications are that that's actually not true. That relationship broke up in the early 2000s over dispute on property that was in Florida that the two had a bidding war against each other on, and that seemed to sour their relationship completely. I've seen no evidence that they continued their relationship beyond that, and beyond that is when these sex offenses were supposed to have occurred. And, I'm not saying they couldn't have occurred before that, but I don't think that the foundation for evidence is there. And the two did not seem close after that. You guys know I have no pure motive to just defend Trump. I'm a big critic of Trump, especially how he handles the U.S. relationship with Israel and other things. But I don't think it's exactly right to say that he had close association in American politics with Donald Trump.
Well, they were dupes. They were bamboozled. They were took. They were the butt of a P.T. Barnum joke. And now, I mean, I just look at them and laugh as I see this gigantic online social media meltdown of MAGA.
Yeah, I agree with them on that. I mean, and it's crazy to see some of the diehard pro-Trump zealots saying that this is somehow a new form of unmanifested genius that Trump is pulling. This is 4D chess. This is exactly what we need, is for him to not release this information regarding a sex trafficking ring that reached into the highest levels of government so he can maintain some sort of mythical leverage against the deep state. It's so ridiculous. It really is a retarded explanation for this. You know, people see through this. The American people are not going to forget this. And I think it behooves dissidents to completely bring this up time and time again forever, clamor for answers. Otherwise, this thing is not going away. You can tell they want it to go away. You can see how Trump answered those questions at the press conference. They want this to go away, but it can't go away because this was a broken promise that involved powerful people collaborating in an evil scheme to undermine the rights of people, violate the rights of people, and probably for blackmail.
Here's Trump yesterday at a cabinet meeting, very defensive. Chris has edited this down. Very defensive when this issue was raised. Chris.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein.
In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed. Also to the tens of thousands of video, never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And that's it on Epstein.
Well, she has driven a wedge down the middle of MAGA because you're right. Many people believed Trump ordered it released. A federal judge ordered it released. She herself ordered it released. Now they're saying the list doesn't exist. I don't think people that are involved in this issue believe that, but I'm just fascinated with Epstein's international connections, and you just outlined them. I forgot about Robert Maxwell.
Well, hey, maybe there's nothing there. Maybe they couldn't find anything. That's a possibility. But Pam Bondi said that there was this black book showing that hundreds of people had been involved in raping minors. She said this on camera.
Yes.
Alina Habba said that too, that we'd be shocked by the revelations that we're going to see. Alina Habba being also one of Trump's lawyers in the Trump administration, talking about this on film. We know that a list of some sort existed. They talked about it, and the scenario in which they're telling the truth now after lying about the existence of all this stuff so long is the most remote possibility in this entire thing. All right. These guys talked about this on the campaign trail. And by the way, the Biden administration didn't step out and say, have a press conference and say there were no clients, there were no client list, etc. They seem to be awfully quiet about that for the most part. And I think it's because, again, they're all in on this thing. And I don't mean each and every individual single one of them, but people from both parties, from different deep state agencies, different lobbyists and prominent people that command a lot of influence in the federal government were involved on this. And that's why both the Trump administration and Biden administration wouldn't release this stuff.
So did Dan Bongino. He said it's going to take down the Democrats, the Clinton network. He said this again and again when he was, on his Rumble show. And now he's deputy director of the FBI. So it looks like obviously a gigantic bait and switch to dupe Trump supporters. And then Donald Trump has to shut the whole thing down because, Donald Trump allowed NBC to come into a party and film him partying with Jeffrey Epstein and Buffalo Bills cheerleaders while Trump commented, whispering in Jeffrey Epstein's ear that, certain cheerleaders were hot. the cheerleaders were like grinding on Donald Trump, and he was dancing with them and showcasing himself as this great Lothario. And Jeffrey Epstein was right there by his side. There's photos of Bill Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein. There's, Clinton's on the logs on the Lolita Express, but there's nothing as vivid as the footage of Trump with Epstein. Epstein also talked about his friendship with Trump to the reporter Michael Wolff. There are damning audio recordings.
Yeah, at one point Epstein did claim that Trump was essentially his best friend. Another time he claimed that Ghislaine Maxwell was his best friend too. But no one doubts that they were close in the 90s. It's how long that relationship continued that's, I guess, up for debate. Again, I haven't seen much evidence that it continued beyond the early 2000s. And trust me, I think Trump's guilty for covering this thing up, just like Biden is, or whoever in the deep state was running the Biden presidency. There's a lot of theories on that too, obviously. So they're all in on this. Like George Carlin said, it's a big club, you're not in it. That's a theme that keeps on occurring time and time again related to this. But there's no doubt that the two had close past associations. I don't think that's the reason that Trump is withholding this list, though. I think it's because they're protecting certain people in power close to them now. It's not because of Trump's personal, relationship or potential dealings in this whole ordeal. Not that I'm saying that's impossible, but I don't see the evidence of that like I do the fact that they're clearly protecting some people in this.
And the Democrats never did anything with this. I said on Twitter yesterday, or X, before Grok had a complete Hitlerian meltdown, I said that this should have been the focus of the Democrats' attacks. Kamala should have brought it up in every debate. Trump Epstein was real, but
don't you think why though? It's that they're all in on it. I mean, I'm with him. Ideally, that is what you would do if you wanted to attack this president, is really to go for the throat over the Epstein files and how they bungled and handled that. But if you do that, and your side's implicated as such on it in the same way that their side is, or the conjecture is that their side is, you kind of, kick yourself in the foot, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot, and that's, I think, the most plausible reason that they are not attacking him for that. You're seeing both neocons and people in the Democratic establishment saying, hey, there's all these kooks still talking about the Epstein files, but, this was 6 years ago that this stuff happened. It's absurd to watch it unfold. Like, this never happened, that there was never a sex trafficking ring. Like, the victims apparently were all lying, and according to them, that there's no evidence that convicted Ghislaine Maxwell. And this tale that there was no blackmail, no associations with intelligence services, and that Epstein sex trafficked minors, but to no one. It doesn't make sense at all, but they're not attacking each other over it, probably because they're all involved in some respect. All sides are.
Instead, they focus on Trump Russia, which was a gigantic hoax, and it had no currency among voters.
Yeah.
Trump Epstein would have hurt Trump among young males, among women, among all these groups he won among the Democrats, but the Democrats wouldn't touch it for some reason. And the reason is because the Democrats were also on Epstein's books. Right. So this is a scandal that I think helps discredit the two-party system. And we will see Trump, as he exonerates Epstein and all of the people supposedly in Epstein's black book, continue to focus on arresting the poor in Home Depot parking lots and throwing them in private prisons run by Geo Group, the top private prison contractor in the country, whose former top lobbyist was seated right next to Donald Trump in that briefing, Pam Bondi. And border czar Tom Homan was a highly paid consultant to Geo Group. So what I'm saying is the Trump administration has nothing to gain financially out of releasing the Epstein files. And that's all they seem to really care about. And so they're going to focus on their bottom line.
Yeah, I think the last point that he made was fantastic. The fact that the Democrats had the opportunity to take this and move with this as a political issue, even in the run-up to the 2024 campaign or after these recent revelations that the DOJ and FBI just contrived that, there was no blackmail, there wasn't a client list at all, despite what we said about that before, but oh wait, that didn't exist. And there's no evidence that he had associations with intelligence to release that memo and go forward with that press conference, but the Democrats sit there and do nothing. and they did nothing over this last 5 years because of that, it doesn't make sense unless they're not in on it. So I think he's right that they're on Epstein's books too. So, you know, he made the great point, I think, that they chose their currency, their weapon against Trump. You know, they reach into a treasure chest and pull out the weapon that they want to use to combat this right-wing fascist Donald Trump, and they pick up a sickle that says Russiagate on it. Well, that was farcical and a hoax. And that's what they used to go to battle with Trump for 2 years, not the Epstein associations. And the Russiagate thing, you know, proved to be a gigantic hoax in the most crazy way, despite the fact that all the pundits on the news media were saying, hey, we have the biggest story ever that's going to undermine a president. It's bigger than Watergate. And we have proof that he's working through Carter Page as essentially an agent within the United States on behalf of the Russian government. Well, would an agent on behalf of the Russian government now, some people still maintain this stupid lie, be supplying Ukraine with arms over the course of 6 months? Would he send weapons to begin with to Ukraine to the tune of about $400 million in 2019, I believe it was, might have been 2018, where they threatened impeachment? He ultimately caved and did that. You know, would he be rattling sabers with Russia now, talking about Putin as if CNN was the one talking about him, that he wants all of Ukraine, all this mythical nonsense that doesn't pan out to be true, that Putin would have to devote tons more forces and resources to that goal if he actually wanted it? All this stuff is just crazy. And you can really see that the Democrats are inept to go to war with Trump over this Epstein issue, probably because some of them are involved. It's almost a sure thing at this time. But I want to hear from you down below. What's the most plausible explanation? Was Epstein a Mossad agent? Was he an asset of the CIA? Is Max and I right about why the Democrats aren't going after him like they went after him regarding the Russiagate hoax? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Napolitano too. He's awesome. Max Blumenthal, a great guest as always, one of the best journalists in the world right now as far as I'm concerned. Gray Zone, excellent site that he runs and operates. Aaron Matei actually contributes there too. And please consider becoming a YouTube member by clicking the join button below. If you do that, you'll help support me financially, and you'll get access to all of my videos on YouTube before they go live. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.